talked earlier about how kind of got on the Catholics and how it's bizarre that their priesthood seems to be more modeled off the Pharisees than modeling it off the apostles. But now I'm going to get on my people, like I got on my old people, now I'm going to get on my new people, the Reformed theologians, because frankly, they're not any better. Now, to get to the story, you have to remember, when I say I'm Reformed, I have never been in a Reformed church in my entire life. I've never read John Calvin until a couple months ago, and we just happen to agree on most topics because we both get our theology from Scripture alone. It's just for 20 years people keep telling me, you're Reformed, oh, you're a Calvinist, you're a Calvinist. I'm like, I don't know, what does Calvin teach? Oh, well, yeah, I got that from the Bible. I didn't get that from John Calvin. So, the most flack I'll get is from people that were raised in a Presbyterian church or like a Reformed Baptist church who, frankly, only traded old traditions away to grasp onto new traditions that were man-made.
As you know, since you're on the site, I have a pretty active online ministry in addition to the live one. Now, one week I posted this meme on a page for Reformed preachers. The accompanying text read, "We must remember that the agony of crucifixion was so great that no word accurately described it. So they needed to invent one. Excruciating. In the midst of this excruciating pain, Christ could have called down 12 legions of angels to wreak vengeance upon those who had wrongfully condemned him and were presently still unrepentantly mocking him. But instead of a cry for justice, Christ's plea from the cross was, 'Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.'" Now, many people were moved by the message on different pages, but on this one, instead of engagement about forgiveness, I get the comment, 2CV. Now, if you have no idea what that means, it's because you are normal. The first indication that you are not a free thinker is that you are using cult-like speak that only your little group uses and understands. Another indication that you're adopting a cult-like mentality is that you put on the denominational uniform. What do I mean? The guy who wrote 2CV was wearing a Jeff cap and a beard in his profile picture, and shortly afterward another guy chimed in with the same objection. Can you guess what his profile picture looked like? Yep, Jeff cap and a beard. Now, I'm not critiquing either, nor am I making fun of anyone's physical appearance, but this is basically the uniform of Reformed theologians. They are the smarter than everyone else, holier than everyone else hipsters of Christianity. Now, everyone's free to dress and groom themselves however they want, but when you start to look exactly like all your peers, maybe you are not an independent mind analyzing Scripture. Just maybe you are becoming a religious person who is interested in the approval of your peers more than the approval of God. Now, this is exactly what Jesus detested in the Pharisees. They prided themselves in being the separated ones. Pharisees think they are being sanctified, but often they're only being sanctimonious. This wasn't the first time I got this reply, so I knew that he meant the description of Jesus as a second command violation. So I replied, per your denominational interpretation or sola scriptura. If the second, explain your own picture. Now I want to pull up the second commandment again to look at it, but before we do, we're going to jump to the 1500s. The Reformation occurs, the Bible is printed for the first time in the common language, and the masses start reading it for the very first time. They discover the same thing that Stacy did, that God clearly prohibits us making statues of anything and bowing before them in worship. So they storm the churches and tear all the statues down and smash them. Then, in many of the Protestant confessions, they do exactly what the Jews did with the Torah. In an effort to be as far from violating the command as possible, and in reality to be clearly anti-Catholic, they make it anathema to make any depiction at all of the Godhead. Godhead is more denomination speak for the Trinity. To be sure, any art of Jesus, which would include my meme, the movie it came from, great works of art, children's coloring books or storybooks, anything was all prohibited and destroyed. Now, the person I was discussing this literally replied, I believe it to be a 2CV based upon both scripture and tradition. Ugh! The whole point of Jesus in the lesson we learned today, and the whole point of the Reformation, is that tradition and scripture do not decide God's commands. Scripture alone dictates our path. So let's go back to scripture alone and see what does the second commandment actually say.
You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down before them or serve them. Now, it's important to realize that immediately after God gave that commandment, he gives Moses detailed instructions on how to carve these angels, these cherubim, for the Ark of the Covenant that commandment is going to go in. So, if this was clearly a prohibition to not making any images, well, you would certainly be in trouble because you made a profession of it, and everyone in here would certainly be in trouble because we all have a whole lot of pictures hanging on our walls, on our Facebook page and stuff. So it's obviously not a prohibition of making any image. It is a prohibition against bowing down before it and making sacrifices to it, worshiping it. Now the reason I include pictures like this is because I'm not interested in trading away one old tradition just to take on a new one. I'm not interested in joining any religious clubs other than Jesus' club. And according to his club rules, we aren't supposed to show off for others how religious we are and how holy and pure we are compared to each other. We are supposed to go out into the highways and the byways and reach every single person we can and bring them into the church, those people who normally would not come. And this is the reason I first started this in the gym. This is the reason I'm most active online, which is the 21st century town square. And this is why I use illustrations like this to drive the point home. This is why I'm not afraid to occasionally use some contemporary, potentially irreverent pictures like those of like superheroes or Star Wars figures. It's because I'm not here to impress anyone who thinks they're already in the kingdom of heaven. I'm here to reach those who are afraid they might not be. So, just like the apostles, I will eat with unwashed hands. I will eat unclean animals. I will eat food that is sacrificed to idols, if it will help me reach just one of you and ensure that on the last day you sit down at the banquet with Christ himself and dine with him.